Hello and welcome to a special edition in our series of Every Superhero Needs a Sidekick. Today we have Nat from the amazing team at Apogee Associates with us. Hi Nat. Apogee
Hi, how's it going?
are a research and development tax specialist team, or R&D for short, for those of you that may have heard that around the marketplace. So now, to be fair to them, Apogee are not an app. So I'm on the fence about labeling them as sidekicks. Instead, Apogee are more like a superhero power-up, where we bring superhero powers of accounting to your business whilst you use your superhero powers to do what you do best. Apogee are a bit like Mario and his magic mushrooms that power us up to be able to give you better services. Apogee are a bolt-on to our annual accounts and corporation tax service and our routine, and they help to reduce your corporation tax bill. Sometimes they even help get cash back in your bank, and that can help fund even more research, more development, and more growth for your business. We'll hear more of that from Nat in a short moment. But in this episode, Nat's going to talk through how this brilliant incentive is used, how they can help, and then I'm going to wrap up about how and why we at Finance Box use Apogee in part of our services for our clients. So Nat, let's kick things off. Let's hear a little bit about you. Who are you? Who are Apogee? And what's your background?
Great questions. I'll try and keep it relatively brief on those. So I've been in R&D tax credits for over 3 years now, across 2 different businesses. And the reason we all started Apogee, we were all working at the same company. We kind of saw an opportunity to bring something different to the space. There's a lot of R&D consultancies out there at the top end and at the lower end of the spectrum as well, who are offering services to clients of varying quality. But it's rare to find an R&D provider who will have an R&D expert working on every single stage of the application. So that's really what we wanted to bring to the table. It gives us a huge advantage in that we're able to isolate a lot more qualifying expenditure than our competitors, because there is an expert involved at every single stage. And it also has other benefits: consistent point of contact, excellent service throughout. And in addition to all of that, we wanted to be a slightly different organization. We wanted to focus on wider goals outside of just generating profit. We wanted to be a sustainable R&D tax credit provider, which is something that I think the space is missing. Professional services like ours are often overlooked when it comes to sustainability, and we really saw an opportunity to do things a little bit differently, both in terms of environmental sustainability and in terms of how we treat our staff, and really building a company that's going to be around for a while. So that's basically what we're here for and why we're doing Apogee. We believe that business can be a powerful force for good in the world, and that's where it's going to come from.
Brilliant. So we've just been batting around the initials R&D quite a bit, and I mentioned it's research and development, but what is R&D?
It's a great question, and people often have a lot of misconceptions about R&D, particularly in the tax context. So in a nutshell, the R&D tax credit scheme allows companies who invest in innovation to get money back for their investment. And that can be in several different ways. It can be an actual cash return, or it can be a reduction in tax liability. So it's a really valuable incentive, but I think a lot of the misconception comes from the actual label R&D. When most people hear R&D, they think of companies building spaceships or mixing stuff in a lab, playing with Bunsen burners, doing all of that kind of stuff, which is obviously R&D. I'm not saying that falls outside of the scheme. But it's a lot broader than that. So it applies to anything where there's some sort of advance in science and technology. So it could be modifying or improving an existing offering. It could be modifying a process, making things more efficient, making things more environmentally friendly. It's really broad in terms of the amount of things that it can apply to, as well as new product development. So a lot of companies who are eligible to recover their costs are not recovering their costs because they're not sure whether they're able to. They're not sure whether they are actually eligible because of this term R&D. So investment in innovation is a good way to think about it. If you're investing in innovation, if you're trying to improve how you do things, you're trying to become more effective, or you're trying to bring something new to the market which you don't see other people doing, there's a good chance you may be eligible to recover your costs.
Amazing. So if I've got a product that I think is a good idea and it's not available on the shelf from anybody else, and it requires me to do a bit of research into the product, how it fits, is it worthwhile, and then develop that product. It could be software, it could be a widget of some description. That all fits in this description, right?
That's exactly right. And it can also be a product that is already on the market, that already exists, but the way of developing that product isn't known. So you have to undergo your own R&D, you have to undertake your own processes to try and make this thing perhaps in a more efficient way at a lower price point, more effective than existing market offerings. And if you're doing that, you'd also be eligible. It doesn't have to be brand new, cutting edge. It can be an iteration or an improvement on existing technology.
So who's R&D for? Who are the tax credits made for?
Well, fundamentally, there are two R&D schemes. There's the SME scheme, which is for companies, small to medium enterprises, generally speaking, with a turnover below £86 million, actually 100 million euros, and less than 500 employees. And then there's the large company scheme, which is for companies who are above those thresholds or owned by a company, part of a group structure above those thresholds. So there's the two different schemes, the SME scheme and the RDEX scheme. So that it really applies to any business that's investing in innovation. Even companies who have had grants to fund their investment, they can still be eligible to recover their costs through the RDEX scheme. So it's really, really broad. It's basically, it's sector agnostic. It can be for any sector. We've worked with brewing companies, for example. We've worked with printing presses. We've worked with textile manufacturers. We've worked with pretty much every type of manufacturing we've done a piece of work with. Software engineers, IT companies, data analysts. The list is truly endless. So it's a huge opportunity, and a lot of companies are basically not taking advantage of it, unfortunately. But that is improving as the scheme carries on, as awareness of the scheme grows. We're seeing more and more companies recover their costs, which is fantastic.
Why does the government want to give us back money on taxes?
That's a great question. Everyone always asks this because they think, HMRC are kind of known for they're very good at taking the money. They're less known for giving it away. But it actually makes commercial sense. They've done their own research. They found out for every pound they invest in a company that is investing in innovation, that will stimulate between £1.50 to £2.30 of additional investment in innovation. And investment in innovation is a good thing. It gives the company a competitive advantage, which means that their profits might increase. If the profits increase, guess what? They're paying more corporation tax. If they grow as a business and they start employing more people, there's more PAYE contributions, there's more national insurance contributions. So through all of the different tax mechanisms, it actually makes HMRC money to give the money away. They take a very much a long-term view. So that's the primary reason for doing it. And kind of just intuitively, that makes sense. You know that investing in innovation as a company is going to, as a country, is going to strengthen the economy globally and improve the UK's global positioning when it comes to their economy and their strength relative to other countries.
Great. So talk me through the process. How does getting an R&D tax credit work?
Yeah, fundamentally, there are two stages to it. You've got to evidence to HMRC that you have undertaken qualifying activity, and you have to explain what qualifying costs you've incurred. So it's always something that occurs after your financial year end. It's not like a grant where you apply for it proactively. You spend the money and then you get a return on that following the financial year end. So how we work at Apogee, we basically make it really easy for our clients. We try to do all of the heavy lifting for them. So ultimately, they can focus on their business. They can do what they need to do, and the R&D is not something that will require a huge amount of their time. So we walk them through the qualifying activity. We help them isolate eligible projects, and we write that up in a report. It's an incredibly comprehensive report. So we address all of HMRC's criteria within that report, explaining what the client has done and why it's eligible. And we also use some very basic financial reports, a salary file and a list of their suppliers by total spend. And we can use that data to pull out their qualifying expenditure. Again, we guide the client through it at every stage, so they're fully supported. And then that gets submitted to HMRC. So it's a really simple process. It probably takes 2 to 3 hours of the client's time because we do all of it for them.
Brilliant. So people watching this video, why should they come to Apogee for some help with R&D tax credits?
I think the primary reason, I'm going to say there's a lot of reasons. I think the main one is that you have an expert working on every stage of the application. So it's not in some other firms where you have to do the application yourself, which kind of puts the onus on you to be the R&D tax credit expert. It's also not a case of having a junior member who isn't really experienced compile the application and then an expert review it. Because when you're reviewing an application, you kind of do it in a vacuum. You don't really know whether it should be 100K qualifying expenditure or 500K. You haven't got that context. So having an expert, a single point of contact work at every stage means that more qualifying expenditure is going to be isolated. We get to get a much better understanding of the client's business, and we can better represent their activities in the report. And because of that, there have been multiple occasions where clients have worked with a previous R&D firm, and we've reviewed the application and been able to uplift it quite significantly.
Great stuff. So let me talk to our viewers quickly about why FinanceBox specifically partner with Apogee. What we like about Apogee is that they don't have any fixed tie-ins with contracts. We've worked with a number of R&D partners over the period of time, and most of them have anything between a 3, 5 and maybe longer term contract, which means all of the work that they put into the first year with the report writing is done, and then the next year's you're tied to them, and it's very difficult to move on. Apogee don't have that interest. They support the client, they see the value in the work they do first time round, and so you can use them without a long-term tie-in. Their fees are based fully contingently on the amount that you get back, or the amount of their qualifying expenditure, more importantly. And it's essentially like a no-win, no-fee kind of deal. So they invest in this as much as you do. As well as that, FinanceBox is a firm of accountants. We could do this. We're good at numbers. We know your numbers. We've used your detail. We've done the bookkeeping. We do your tax return. So there is an element where you might be saying, why do FinanceBox outsource this? Well, Apogee are great with their words. They are the expert. They write that 30-odd page report, or however long it needs to be, in the right language for HMRC to take their sector-specific jargon into language that HMRC are going to understand. And they have the proven track record with HMRC that supports the validity of their claim and helps them get back the credits that you're entitled to. So that's why we partner with Apogee, and as far as I'm aware, we will always do that because they're the team, and with the words, and we're the team with the numbers. So let me talk to you about how we also do that as part of our process. So we prepare annual accounts for our clients, and we prepare the draft of the corporation tax return. And then after that's done at a draft level, we introduce Nathaniel and his team at Apogee. Apogee then work with us to identify your qualifying costs, and after they've spoken to you and had that kind of interview about what it is you've been doing and what might be involved, we will help them pull out the numbers from your accounting data to populate the qualifying expenditure. They then do their research analysis and then come up with the final numbers, and with your approval they hand those numbers back to us, and we then finalize your corporation tax return and file everything in one filing. They can look at the previous year at the moment under the current rules. So sometimes we do a refiling of a previous tax return as well. But everything we do is essentially planned for one simple filing and one very easy rebate from HMRC.
And thus far, it's worked really well. It's such a seamless process. And I've got to say, from our standpoint, it's amazing working with FinanceBox because we have all of that support. Which we don't always have sometimes when we're working with other clients who have different accountants. It can take a long time to just gather the basic information that we need. But with FinanceBox, it's all straight there. It's immediately accessible. It's not a hurdle that we have to wait to overcome, and it makes the entire process so seamless. We can turn around a piece of work with the support of FinanceBox in a couple of weeks because of that. And I think there's something to be said about that, certainly from a client's perspective, when you're not having to have a process drag on for a really long amount of time. So for us, it works incredibly well.
And when you put in cash in the bank, isn't it? It's cash in the bank for the client.
Indeed.
It's quite a sensitive time in a moment. So the quicker we can get that done together, the partnership pays itself off, doesn't it?
For sure, for sure.
Nat, thank you so much for your time and the intro to R&D. I'm sure lots of people will find that useful to have that quick intro. What's the best way for people to get in touch with you or your team if they want to know more?
We do have an inquiry form on the website, so people can fill in their details on that. If they want to hear more, they can email info@apogee.co.uk, or if anyone has any sort of specific questions that they want to ask me, they can email me at nat@apogee.co.uk. We're always happy to jump on a call. We're always happy to answer questions. we want more people to be aware of the scheme and to be aware of what they can and can't do. So we're trying to be as open as possible and accessible as possible. So just get in touch with us. We're always happy to have a chat.
Brilliant. Well, that just leaves me to say thanks again for your time. And for viewers, if you wouldn't mind liking and sharing our content, or even maybe subscribing to the channel. There's a couple of other videos in this particular series with Every Superhero Needs a Sidekick, where we actually focus on the app stack, trying to make the process efficient and your workflow as automated as possible. So please tune into those and let us know what you think. If there's anything else you'd like content on, of course, please let me know by leaving a comment. Meanwhile, thanks for watching. See you again soon.
See you later.